Good morning. I'm here with Sister Margaret Healy in the community in Dublin in number 8 Grosvenor Road. Good morning, Sister Margaret.
Good morning, Maureen.
We are going to talk about St. Louis Secondary School and also the novitiate. Sister Margaret went to, as a boarder, along with several of her sisters, to St. Louis Secondary School. So we'll start with that. Sister Margaret, you're from County Clare,
Mm-hmm.
which, for anybody who's not familiar with the geography of Ireland, that's in the southwest of the country. So it's quite a distance, especially in your day when you would have been going to secondary school. So can you tell me how you ended up going to St. Louis Secondary School?
Well, my eldest sister got a half a scholarship to Monaghan, and then my mother didn't want, when the second one came to going to school, she didn't want her going to a different school.
Mm-hmm.
So she decided that we would all go to school in Monaghan, and that's what we did.
And
So,
that was Sister Mary.
Mary,
Yeah.
yes. And the way of going was we'd either be dropped into Galway and take the train to Dublin, and from Dublin the train to Monaghan, or after we got a car, we would have gone by. My parents would have driven to Monaghan, but when I started going, we were already, because several of cousins of mine and also one or two neighbours, they wanted to go to school in Monaghan as well because we were going. We were very close, so my parents hired a minibus and a guy called John Mack from Corrifin, and he would drive around and pick everyone up, and we'd head off to Monaghan then, and
Wow.
he would come home, and then for the holidays the same
And how long
thing.
would it have taken to go by bus in those days?
Oh gosh, I really couldn't tell you, Maureen, but
Yeah.
there were no motorways. It
Yeah.
was, and there were narrow roads. The only thing that I really remember very well was the fun we used to have in the minibus, and we had one stop which was in Athlone, and we'd go into the Bon Bon Cafe at the time, and we'd get chips or whatever we wanted, and then head off to Monaghan.
Okay,
Yeah,
very good.
yeah.
So can you tell me a little bit about, I suppose, you started in first year in secondary school there, so you did all your secondary school
In
teaching there
Monaghan,
through the boarding school or
yes.
by boarding there. So can you tell me a little bit about, I suppose, what school life was like, what the actual school, the academic or, the educational side of it, and then
Yes,
the boarding side of it? If you can
yes.
tell me about.
Well, the educational side, I was trying to think back. Like I don't think I learned very much. I was I was happy there. I liked games, and also part of it was that we were all together. I remember, like, I suppose it would be called a clique now,
Hmm.
but I always felt that the Clare people, because we were all related, really,
Hmm.
kind of clubbed together. I remember like going out for walks and going for games and that. We'd have our own
Little
one or
group.
two friends as
Yeah.
well, but as a general rule, so in terms of learning, I don't remember an awful lot, but
Hmm.
I was happy. I loved, I mean, the study I didn't mind in the evenings, but I loved the winter months when we'd have dancing. We used to go to the concert hall, especially in the cold winter months. And one of the sisters would play a record player, and we'd be dancing like maybe an hour's dancing at night. I loved that, really enjoyed it, because there again, we were all together. Our cousins, we all kind of clubbed around and knew who, because in the national school, my mother was the teacher there, and she introduced an hour on Friday afternoon, the last hour on Friday afternoon, teaching us dancing. But that would be sets and waltzes and barn dances and that. So we used to do that in Monaghan, and I just loved it. That, and the other thing I loved was games, of course, was always lovely. But there were other, the food was good, didn't mind the food. It was good. I considered it to be good. Um, what else? We slept like in dormitories,
Hmm.
and usually we slept, my sisters, when there were two of us together. If there were three of us together, the eldest got a room or an alcove on her own, and then the other two slept in a double bed. And I remember the cold. Sometimes we'd be quite cold, especially our feet,
Hmm.
and well, things like that. And of course, you weren't allowed you weren't supposed to be talking at night, but because we were together, we would be talking
Okay.
and things like that.
And how many would have been in a dormitory? You were talking about little alcoves. Was there?
Oh, there'd be about, I'd say maybe 15 or 16 aside. So, and
Okay.
there might even be a middle row as well. So there could be, I never thought of
Upwards of
counting,
50
but maybe
potentially.
40, I would be thinking
Wow.
maybe 30 or 40.
Okay.
And then there were smaller dormitories. That was in the new building, so they
Yeah.
were long. And there would be a sister at one end in her own alcove as well, but closed over. She'd be there to maybe keep order in the place. Sometimes there'd be hijinks, depending on what. But I don't remember any kind of uh, sort of bad stuff out
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean.
You just
Even
it was it's a very pleasant memory. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
And do you remember any specific sisters either that were looking after the boarding or
Oh
the sisters
yes.
that taught you, or do you have
Oh,
any
I
memories?
do. Sister Melvira was in charge of the dormitory. She was lovely,
Hmm.
really lovely, and because we'd be very lonely going back. I mean, I remember even say crying at night. She'd always come around
Hmm.
and you'd sit on the bed and chat with us and talk about things, So I do remember that when we were teachers, Mary Gabriel Mary, David, Assumpta, they were just lovely.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't pick out anyone that I didn't like, for example.
Yeah.
We had some lay teachers as well,
Okay.
very nice lay teachers. One for Irish, Miss Gahan, she was a bit strict, but I mean, nothing,
Yeah.
nothing untoward
Yeah. Yeah.
happening. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was, it was,
And what was your favorite subject?
oh God, uh, uh, domestic science, I think I loved cooking.
Okay.
Yeah, Irish.
Yeah.
I did love Irish because at home also our mother was very keen on us. We'd have a smattering. She loved us to talk Irish,
Yeah.
and we'd have a smattering of it. And I appreciated it for the language itself. And we had Sister Brigida. She was lovely. She was what they call a late comer, late
Yeah.
vocation. But she was lovely and she was really interested. And she'd be asking us to do jobs
Uh-huh.
around. If a bulb went, she'd always go for the tall people. My sister Kathleen was way taller than me. And even latterly, like maybe before Bridget had died, when came to Monaghan for a visit, she remembered my sister changing bulbs for her.
Oh.
And she said she could always ask one of us because we knew how to do things like that.
Yeah.
Well, we did it at home,
Yeah.
so yeah.
Yeah. So you did you enter directly after secondary school?
More or less.
Yeah.
I finished in June 63, did Leaving Cert in June 63. But my brother Vincent was going to be ordained in December.
Hmm.
And I don't know who advised me to stay out until he was ordained because I wouldn't be able to go to the
Oh yes. Yeah.
ordination as a postulant. I'd only
Yeah.
been there a couple of months. So when in my interview with Colin Bond before I left,
Uh-huh.
because everybody had to be interviewed before, and I told her I was thinking of coming back in that, but that I'd wait until January, or I'd wait until after Christmas when to be at Vinny's ordination.
Yeah.
And she said that was a good idea. And she said, would I be able to come on the 6th of January? And I said I would. And six in my set, turned up on the 6th of January.
And when did you realize that you wanted to enter?
I think it was around the Leaving Cert, like maybe before or after, which was quite late on. I just had this. I used to love in the chapel, if you were there and there was nobody else there. And we used to often pop in at night,
Hmm.
before you go to the dormitory and that. I loved, there was kind of a peace about it or something. It's hard to describe it, but
Hmm.
just that. And then I did feel I just wanted to go. I loved it. I suppose part of it was really that I loved the sisters. I loved the
Mm.
way they were,
Yes.
kind of always lovely, interested in everybody,
Uh-huh.
and just the atmosphere, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're now in the novitiate. You've joined in January of 64?
Yes.
64.
60.
So I'd love to hear about your experience in the novitiate.
Well, the novitiate was a different kettle of fish, as we say. I was desperately lonely when I first came
Hmm.
because at that time, uh, my mother also, I was very close to my mother, and she was very upset that I was entering.
Okay.
Really, she did not want it, but she wouldn't say it.
Yeah.
But when I said I was thinking of it, she said, "Oh, not another one." It's kind of, I could see by her face and
Yeah.
her expression and that. And she actually was able to. She used to phone me. I used to get to the phone, which was a bit unusual, I
Hmm.
think, in those days. but every so often. I remember once, I suppose maybe I was already in my, I don't know how far on I was, but I was there anyway. And she sort of said, "Oh," I said, how are you doing today, or how are things?" She said, "Oh, the men have been here. The mehel were here. You know, they were doing the
Mm.
corn. So it must have been in the autumn." And she said, "And I've just made a big tray of apple tart, the usual, like
Yeah.
what you would do when people were going to be a crowd." And I said, "Oh, I wish I was there to help you." And she said, "Well, come, can't you come home?" She said, "I've still got all your clothes are here. There's,
Oh,
so come whenever you want. All you have to do is just say the word and we'll be up for you."
yeah.
So, but so I knew like that there. So yeah, it did take me quite a while to settle.
Yeah, that's
It
hard.
really
Yeah,
did.
that's
Yeah.
hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so you, can you tell me a little bit about what I suppose your strongest memories and what you really enjoyed about the novitiate? Um,
Yeah. It was quite strict, actually.
yeah,
It was quite strict, but I wasn't unhappy.
yeah,
I just, I don't know what it was. I always felt kind of part of the place or
yeah,
something. And I liked, we used to get, I suppose, to say, experience in doing work around the house, the convent. Like we did lots of cleaning and all that kind of thing.
hmm,
And I had two placements that I really loved. Now, one was with the sort of, all the sheets, pillow slips, all the uh, different things, towels, everything had to be done, had
yeah.
to be done. And I was doing that at one stage. Sister Sinead was running I have,
So you're talking about like the laundry where they were washing all the sheets and the
yes,
towels and everything, yeah,
yes.
for the convent and for the
And for
boarding
the boarding
school,
school,
right?
yes, for
Okay,
everything, yes. And I was in
it's very
there.
self-sufficient, really, wasn't it?
Oh,
The
it
running of it,
was.
yeah,
It really was.
yeah,
Because I'll tell you also another one. Remind me if I forget about the meat, uh, the kitchen. It was such a wonderful place to work. I mean, I
yeah.
really loved it, and mainly because Sinead and Odile,
Is it
Sinead's
Sinead Byrne?
Byrne,
Yeah,
yes, and Odile, her sister,
yeah,
were there. But Sinead, I think, was in charge,
yeah,
and she was such a lovely human being, lovely person to work with.
yes,
I never heard her raise her voice. She was very calm. She was very particular about everything being done well,
yeah,
that she was really a perfectionist.
uh-huh,
But she never made you feel inferior or anything like that. And it was like there were huge, my recollection is the big machinery,
yeah,
big rolls where the sheets would go in,
yeah,
and then there were about four, maybe three or four older women there. So I would be helping one of them to put the sheets through
yeah,
and then taking them out at the other end, then folding and all of that, putting them into baskets, making sure the right clothes went to the right places, the right sheets went. And it was just such a relaxing place to work. And there
hmm,
was nobody like at you or telling
yeah.
you you're not doing it right or anything like that. So I really loved my time there. So
And
much so
yeah,
that when Mother Colin Bond, she interviewed us before. You were interviewed at particular stages along the training, like from postulants to going into canonical year and first profession. And at my meeting with her before my first profession, she said, "Well, now, are you thinking of what you'd like to do when you leave?" And I said, "I want to work in the laundry for the rest of my life." And she smiled and she said, "Oh, I don't think that'll be possible." But like I loved it so much that I really thought this is where I want to be, not only as a sister, but
Wow.
in
So
the laundry.
during your time in the novitiate, you had, as you said, sort of two different work
Mm,
experiences within the convent, and one of
yes.
them was working in the laundry. And
Uh,
where was the other one? And what were the other options you could have chosen?
Yes, and you didn't choose
All right,
anything.
there
Not
you
even
were.
the laundry. I didn't
Okay,
choose
all
it,
right.
but I was. That was
Yeah, you
my
were assigned
placement.
to
Yeah,
it. Yes.
assigned.
Yeah.
Well, you could be assigned to St. Louis House, cleaning, hoovering around the stairs, the things, cleaning the toilets. You could be making beds for the senior sisters.
Hmm.
The council, they call them, the central
Yeah.
leadership team.
That was kind of the original convent, isn't it? The original
Yes,
building. Yeah.
Louis House, beautiful
Yeah.
building,
Yeah. That's
really beautiful.
the building that became the nursing home.
That's right.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
That's right. Or you might be down in the refectory cleaning the wet refectory, or what they call the red halls.
Yeah.
That's a tiled corridor outside the refectory. That was quite a difficult one because they used to have to rub kind of a wax on it and then
Yeah.
polish it. And people would
Wow.
say like, "Oh, I don't want to be on the red halls," and
Okay.
things like
That's
that.
backbreaking work.
But I wasn't ever on it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it is funny. I couldn't tell you what other duties I had to do except the kitchen and the laundry.
Okay. So your
And
other work experience was in the kitchen.
it
Was
was,
that cooking
oh, it
or?
was wonderful.
Yeah.
No, it was helping.
Yeah.
Sister Adelaide was the person in charge.
Yeah.
And there again, no more than Sinead, Adelaide she was so calm and so composed
Yeah.
and nothing fizzed on her, you know.
Yeah.
She just, everything was, but again, it was the staff.
Yeah.
There was a wonderful person, Annie McGrath. She was the, I suppose you call her the senior cook
Mm-hmm.
now. And then there was a Philomena, or Philo, as we used to call her. And then there were 3 or 4 other younger people. They were all employed, as far as I remember.
Yeah.
But they were just wonderful. I mean, they looked out for us. We didn't have to worry about things, even because I took over the kitchen actually after I trained in Edinburgh. I did the institutional management and catering,
Oh, very
and I
good.
did 2 years in the kitchen after I came back.
Okay.
Even then, they were just so. And Adelaide was gone, and I was on my own, and I
Yeah.
felt really, you know, I'd have support from novices would come in and help and all of that, but the staff were just wonderful. And I give you one example of how wonderful everybody was. There was a butcher that used to come in every day. He had his own, what will I say, kind of a butcher's table, and
Yeah.
the meat. It was a separate place from the kitchen,
Yeah.
but he'd cut all the meat and everything every day for the food, for the
Yeah.
dinners and that. Harry McFadden was his name.
Uh-huh.
And at one stage, there was a sponsored walk from Monaghan to Carrickmacross, fundraising for something local. I can't even remember what it was. But the day we were supposed to be going on the walk, Harry came in, and he came in with a stick for me that he had cut. That he said, "You'll need this on the walk." Now, I thought that was the most kind
Yeah.
thing to do, you know.
Yeah.
I knew nothing about taking a stick on a long walk. It's about 23 or 4 miles
I
at
was
that
just about
time.
to say that's quite a distance.
It was, and it was an all-day event. But
Walking.
like, to think that he would come in, that he'd know I was going number one,
Yeah.
and then that he would come in with a stick for me to make it easier. So
Wow.
people were just so kind and so
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
And Annie McGrath, Annie was the cook. She never, no more than Adelaide, there would never be a mistake, you know,
Yeah.
nothing, anything you did, she'd say, "Oh, don't worry about it, or
Yeah.
we can do this, or we can cover it over."
Yeah.
And the other thing about that, I remember when I came back from Edinburgh, my first day, the new team, central leadership team, had been elected that summer,
Yeah.
and Madeleine Healy was the new bursar. No relation of mine. Madeleine was from Cork, but she came over to the kitchen and she said to me, "Whatever you want, just say, and I will get it for you."
Yeah.
And at the time, I don't know if it was, I mean, maybe it was long before, but I understood about stainless steel was all the go. Stainless steel, serving dishes, teapots, all of that. And I said, "Oh, we should get stainless steel. They're clean. And, you know, they're all the same. We can, etc., uniformity and all of that." And she said, "Just make a list of what you want and I get it for you." And the same with food. She said, "You don't have to follow the menu that was before. Make your own
Yeah.
menus and do what you want to do." And I made a major change. My first major change was, and I said it to her, instead of rice for dessert on Fridays, rice with a sauce, I usually jam sauce on it. That's what we got all the years we were there that I remember. I can't remember anything else. I said, "We're going to have ice cream and a chocolate sauce. Whatever you want," she said. "Just have, draw the menus up and the food will get the food."
Excellent. That
And
sounds wonderful.
I just thought it was wonderful, you
Yeah.
know.
So you had great kind of your two kind of work placement experiences. Were you in the novitiate pre or post Vatican II?
Post.
Post. Okay. So do you?
Vatican II ended, I think, in 64.
Okay.
Yes, and definitely it affected how we were treated.
Right. Okay.
I think there was a much, because when I hear people talking about the novitiate, a lot of people say they hated the novitiate. I can't say that.
Yeah.
You know, it was strict, all right, but I didn't hate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I suppose it needed to be strict.
Well, it could have been less
Yeah.
strict,
Yeah.
probably, you know.
I mean, I was talking to interviewed Enda McMullen the other day, and she was
Yeah.
talking about down in the dining room
Yes.
where you had to eat in silence.
Oh, yes.
And was
Yes.
it like that when you were there as
Oh,
well?
yeah. Well,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was end as my set.
Oh, she's in your set.
Yes.
Okay, all right,
But I
okay.
don't know if she mentioned you. Like we used to have dances as well in the novitiate.
Yeah,
Sometimes.
no, she didn't mention
And
that.
Barbara McHugh, who was also our set,
Yeah,
was a musician, and
uh-huh.
Barbara used to play the piano. And
Yeah,
of course, we were jiving at the time because it was the 60s,
yeah,
and I was very used to going to dances at home.
yeah.
In actual fact, our mother used to say to us, always plan to go to a dance the day before you go back. We usually went back on a Monday
Right.
and go dancing on Sunday, and then you have something to talk about on the journey back,
True.
like
Yeah,
to
yeah,
cheer us up,
yeah.
like going back. But Barbara used to play, we used to be asking Barbara to play this and that, and we'd be jiving. And one day, Mother Dolores was the novice mistress at the time, and she came in and she started by saying, and I saw or I've heard, or somebody, maybe Sister Ivan was complaining that you're down in the corner jitterbugging. And of course, we didn't know what jitterbugging was, but anyway, it was the dancing. But so there was quite a bit of that kind of thing,
Yeah.
freedom. The only thing I really didn't like, I couldn't sing. I
Right.
never could sing. And one day we were practicing the office. They had some new office was introduced, and we were practicing in the novitiate. And they told me to sing. They were going around different
Mhm.
people to sing, and of course I couldn't. I said, I just didn't, and I wouldn't. And they kept saying, sing, sister, sing the office, or whatever it was that I had to sing. And of course, the more they said it, the more I couldn't do it.
Yeah, the more nervous you
And
got,
I
yeah.
couldn't do it. And then Dolores said, you were stubborn in the boarding school and you haven't changed. And I often wondered, I never said it to her, but I often wondered, I never thought I was stubborn in the boarding school. I thought I was quite all right. But anyway, that was it.
Yeah,
I thought I'd be sent home that time
yeah.
actually for really strong disobedience.
And this was in the novitiate now, not
In the
yeah,
novitiate, yeah.
yeah,
And I think I might have been in canonical years, so they could easily have said, you're not
yeah,
suitable or whatever. I really thought I would be sent home. But even with that, I couldn't do it. I couldn't
yeah,
sing,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And so presumably because you were post Vatican II, then you were wearing kind of the more modern habits and all that.
Initially, we started like during canonical year, we were still the old habit with the white veil, the full thing. The next year, we were probably still the same.
Yeah,
But I do remember when we went into the shorter skirt and the shorter veil.
yeah.
I do remember that. And which was, before it was the television, like
Yes,
the big awkward
that's what they
thing.
called it, yeah.
And then there was a band, your hair was out, some out. And as Maud Murphy, one of my sets, said, the hair can be shown is optional. For some, it's more optional than others, as you could see, because some people didn't yet show any hair,
Yeah,
but others had the veil right in the top of their head, then back further, and it began to
okay.
go back further,
Wow.
so the more hair got
Yeah,
shown, yeah.
yeah,
So I'd say I was about maybe professed maybe 1 or 2 years, or maybe even more
yeah,
before we went into that habit.
yes,
But by the time I got to go to England, which was in 73,
yeah.
I was hardly wearing a habit at all at that stage,
Wow.
even though we were supposed to wear it for formal, like you were teaching or say going to funerals or that.
Yeah,
But since I wasn't ever teaching, I was always in community work.
yeah,
I never considered that I had to wear the habit.
yeah, yeah,
So I probably stopped wearing it at that stage.
yeah.
Almost definitely.
So you actually experienced all the habits nearly.
Yes, we
Yeah,
did. Yes.
that's quite unique, really.
Yeah.
And it
Oh,
was probably your set then,
our
and
set. Yeah,
yeah,
would have.
roughly.
Yes.
Yeah,
Maybe the set or two after us as well.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we'll finish here. Just to really, just to have you any kind of particular memories that we haven't really chatted about, or is there anything?
Oh, there's so much. There's so much. No, uh, no. It was very happy
Yes.
for me
Yeah.
personally.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I loved a lot of it. There were ups and downs.
Yeah.
I
Of
mean, there's
course, like anything.
no, and I'm sure we got into. Oh, we did. We all went out of town one day after. This is really good. After the exam results came out, and if it was good results, then we'd get the day off the next day. And I was in Rangan, all my class were in Rangan, and Sister Brigida was our class teacher. She
Uh-huh.
was in charge of our class. So we all went out town, except one particular student called Anne Marie Cannon. And Anne Marie was lovely. We all loved her. She was really good. Anyway, we all went out town, and the next day, Brigida said, and we got into trouble. There was terrible trouble in school about so many went out town
Mhm.
on the day off because we weren't allowed. And Anne Marie, Brigida came in and she stood in front of the class and she said, who went out town yesterday? And we all stood up, except Anne-Marie.
Right.
And Bridget pounced on her. She said, Anne-Marie Cannon, and why didn't you go with the others? She was so lovely, Bridget, you know.
Oh, that's funny.
She was.
Yeah. That's great. That's a lovely way to finish up, Margaret.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, thank you so much.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.